Since I made the public announcement in 2015 about our initiative on mission for the Church Alive, a great deal has happened. We really began in that year with 188 parishes, and now we're quickly approaching the fact that we'll have 61 parishes in our diocese. And while some people may look at the statistics and see a negative in it, I see a great positive. One of the reasons why we decided to move in the direction that we did is for two specific reasons. The first is to bring everybody as a part of the Church of Pittsburgh in a much closer relationship to Jesus Christ. And that's the most important goal about that initiative. But in order to get there, it was really important for us to be able to bring all the faithful of the Diocese of Pittsburgh with a common vision of working together so that we could celebrate that. And over the course of the years, while all of the changes have not been easy, I believe that they've been very fruitful. Much grace has taken place. Many people have torn down walls, crossed over bridges that they never would have dreamt being able to do. And I think we find ourselves now in a very exciting next step for our mission for the Church Alive. Well, if I could begin by talking about the roots of our On Mission initiative. I've shared this story with a number of people, and if you've heard it before, I beg your indulgence. But the day after it was announced that I was becoming the Bishop of Pittsburgh, I was on my way back to Green Bay, sat next to a gentleman on the plane, and after I finished praying the rosary, he asked me if I was afraid to fly. And I assured him that I wasn't. But at that point I asked him, since he knew what the rosary was, he must have been a Catholic. And his answer stunned me. He said, "I used to be, but not anymore. I'm now a Buddhist." And I asked him what happened. And he said, "Well, to tell you the truth, I didn't see anybody in my church who at all resembled Jesus." And so that particular moment was an answer to my prayer about what did Jesus want me to do in becoming the Bishop of the Church of Pittsburgh. And I think the bottom line of what we are about, and I think the honest response of the man who is sitting next to me is something that we see all around us. One of the things that concerns me are the number of people who have pulled away from the church, have pulled away from God. I'm also concerned about the fact that since we've opened our doors back up again after COVID, not everybody has in fact returned. And that's the concern that I think is shared with all of my brother bishops throughout the United States. And it seems to me that what's at the heart of what's happened is that lack of knowing who Jesus really is. I think lots of times we focus attention on all the particulars about Jesus' life, that he was born in the little town of Bethlehem, that he was sent by God to introduce us to his Father in heaven, that he performed miracles, taught good lessons, forgave people their sins, that he died on a cross, rose from the dead. And all of those are honest and bits of knowledge about who Jesus is. But it's really up to us to welcome Jesus into our own hearts. Our efforts are going to be focused on really getting into the hearts of our faithful so that they can really come to know Jesus. And not only what we know about him from history and what we've learned about in our catechism books, but that we come to know him as a personal part of our lives. Well, I think the word evangelization kind of scares people. They're not sure what it means. It's a $50 word. And evangelization simply means, coming to embrace the good news. One of the things that I will often ask my confirmation candidates, and the questions that I'll ask them is, well, when we take a look at the word gospel, do you know what that word means? And sometimes they know it, sometimes they don't, and I share with them the word gospel means good news. And then my question then is, well, why would the Gospels, the story about Jesus, be called good news? After all, think about what happened in Jesus' life. It wasn't always, what a seeming success or joy. And it gives me the opportunity to say, the good news that Jesus came to touch the earth, that he took on our skin, that he demonstrated for us the most powerful example of what love is all about, is not only good news, it's great news. So evangelization means being able to take all that we've learned about Jesus in the Gospels and realize that that's a timeless story, and it needs to be relived in each one of us. Because in the end, why it's so important is because of the invitation we've received from God about our ultimate destination, which is to make sure we keep our eyes focused on coming to God's kingdom in heaven. It's going to be our best effort to get as many people back to church as can be. It's going to be our effort to try to get more and more people excited about who Jesus is, and it's going to be an opportunity for us to be able to prove it by our words and our deeds. So one of the things that we all try to do in terms of our diocesan campus, and I really do want people to believe that we really do more here than desk work. We really try to do all that we can to really help all of our faith communities, not only our parishes, but our schools and all of our other religious communities to really be able to celebrate faith. And a part of how we're approaching the opportunity to help people more is during our evangelization efforts of taking a look at, how important it is for us that our clergy, our priests, our deacons, our potential priests, our seminarians, our religious, are all geared up to be able to reflect the love of Jesus who has called us to that particular state. It's an opportunity for us to take a look at evangelization efforts in terms of all of those aspects of who we are as parishes. It's an opportunity for us to take a look at evangelization through the formation process, how we help to infuse religious education programs, not only for our young people, but for our adults, and ongoing education process and formation for our clergy, an opportunity for us to be able to invite more lay people to leadership roles, especially as lay ecclesial ministers, an opportunity for us to be able to make sure that we seek to make our worship as lively as possible, and in a particular way to make sure that everybody knows that there's a place for them at the table in the church. And then finally, our evangelization efforts are also going to be focused on what happens in our Catholic schools, who do an outstanding job of really helping their students to come to really know the Lord, as we said in our on mission prayer, to learn Jesus, to love Jesus, and to live Jesus. And so, as we continue to unfold our efforts, I'm hoping that more and more people in our Church of Pittsburgh will benefit from the things we're trying to do to help them on their journey for coming to God's kingdom in heaven. We all need to learn the art of listening. There's a difference between hearing and listening. I always like to make the delineation to say that hearing is a matter of the brain, information coming into our heads. But listening is a lot more. It means that the messages of our connecting with other people really goes to our hearts. For 13 years of my past life, I worked in secondary schools. And the very first beginnings of my working with young people turned out to be a disaster. Simply because I was trying to put on the role of David the teacher and all the qualities that I thought were important to a teacher. But I learned from my students, and I will often say to them when I meet them, that they taught me more than I taught them. And what they taught me was how important it is for me to not go in with any kind of presupposition about who people are because of their age, but to just be able to listen, to hear what's on their hearts. One of the exciting things that I experienced during our synodal sessions is we helped people to understand that's exactly what Pope Francis was asking of us. That we could listen to each other's questions, their concerns, maybe their angers, perhaps their hopes. And that's what I came to learn in a most refreshing way from young adults, especially from the students that were in high schools. Because once they came to the point of realizing that I was serious about listening to what was on their minds and hearts, then their hearts opened like floodgates. And that, I believe, is a very important step that we all need to take. So I appreciated your question about surveys, because I have to be quite honest every time that I go for a doctor's visit, and that's been many times this year. I get frustrated when I get the request, would you please fill out the survey? And after I've completed the survey, I can see the purpose of it, that the physicians and their offices are looking for honest ways in which they can better be servants to their patients. The intention, as frustrating as it might be at the beginning, is to give everybody a reassurance. The reason why we're looking for the information is to see how we can be a better church, how I can be a better bishop, and how each one of us can really, row in the right direction. What I think the Lord Jesus implanted in my heart whenever I got that call that I was coming back to Pittsburgh. Are you excited about your faith? And I hope that we can all become more excited about Jesus' love for us and our love for him. Most important of all, that I hope people will come to see the Church of Pittsburgh as a church that is welcoming. I wrote a pastoral letter several months ago that challenged all of us to take a look at how important hospitality is to us. And why that's so important is because that's the whole reason why Jesus came to earth. All throughout salvation history, God was trying to get through our thick heads and sometimes even thicker hearts, how much he wanted to be able to reside there. And, one attempt after another in the Old Testament didn't work as effectively as God wanted it to work. So finally he sent his son. And it was the convincing sign that God, through his Son and with the power of the Holy Spirit, is putting out the welcome mat of being able to come to God's kingdom in heaven. And I think that in a day where the secular world would like us to take a look at seeking after the success that the world can offer, it's really important for us as the church, which is the body of Christ, to see that what matters most is not how much money we have in the bank, what the size of our homes are, what kind of car we drive, what kind of recognition that we have in the public, but what should matter most to us is that God put out the welcome mat for us, and he wants us to accept his invitation, and we do so by doing the best we can on that path to get there.